We're live.
What's up?
Yes. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Harvest family, audience members, people that are watching this because it was shared on your timeline or your friend's timeline. Welcome in. Happy Monday here. And hi, Cassie. Good morning, Cassie. Another installment of What's Your Story? Love this Monday morning devotional, a look at Harvest staff members, Harvest ministry leaders, Harvest pastors. Good morning, Gail. Hope your day's off to a great start. We learn about them. You know, you get a chance to kind of pull back the veil, learn about who is leading your Harvest family, and more importantly, we learn their stories. So excited to begin another day, and psyched to have you all join us this morning. So thank you very much for hopping in. Today, which you could probably read, good morning, Catherine. The wave feature is a new feature, although it's kind of weird because then you have to point. Good morning, Tammy. So today's featured guest, my main man right here, Tim Cook, which you probably could read, but now you can see it. And we're excited to learn about Tim Cook today. It's going to be a lot of fun. Before I will say this again, welcome in. And awesome job yesterday. Great worship yesterday.
Well, thank you. Praise God.
It was good. Yeah, it was really good. It was a fantastic service. Great vibe, great atmosphere. Awesome word from Pastor Xavier. Good morning, Sally. Good morning, Christine. Yeah, awesome word by Pastor Xavier, and the worship. It was on point. Yeah, good job. I feel like this is going to be like one of these. No, I'm just kidding.
I speak when there's something to be said.
That's just what I do. You know, that's just what God blessed me with it, and that's just what we do.
That's why you are like conducting the interviews rather than them just slapping a camera in front of the rest of us, and we're all like,
"Yeah."
So, what do you want to talk about today?
Right. Anyway, so thank you all for joining. We have got a fun morning planned, and excited to hear about Tim. If you're excited to hear Tim Cook's story, give us a little thumbs up right there. Hit that thumbs up button, and sharing our excitement today, because this is going to be awesome. Again, love listening to the stories, learning more about everybody, because I don't even know all of Tim's story. I don't even know half Tim's story. Good morning, Pastor Ken. Good morning, Harvest Church. So with that being said, again, hope your week's off to a great start, and we're going to hopefully make it a little bit better right now with What's Your Story featuring Tim Cook. Now, I was trying to come up with, like, as you know, we do a lot of us have multiple roles here. So people are like, "What do you do?" And I'm like, kind of a little bit of everything. And you're kind of the same way, right? You have your hands in a lot of different things. So if I said, Tim Cook, what do you do at Harvest? What do you do?
I kind of have put as my title IT director and project manager.
Okay. I gave you facilities manager, or maybe, yeah, something like that too.
Well, so Keith Jumper is the facilities manager or whatever. So
okay,
he'd be the one who's over facilities. So my role as far as the facilities go is more just any project. So if we have, there's this major issue we've got over here,
right.
Like I'm the one who's going to like zero in and tackle that project. So anyway, so like we had some leaking issues. Like I'm going to dig in and figure out what's going on there. Let's try to fix it. Still trying to fix that. So
good morning, Suzanne. Good morning, Janet. Yeah, so the physical things, and then of course the IT things. So we annoy Tim a lot. So, my computer's not working, Tim.
Yeah, so IT is a big part of it. So both infrastructure and then just if your computer isn't working, can't print, whatever. So that's cool. Kind of me. Been doing some big projects there, trying to like work myself out of a job in that place, because just trying to simplify our system and make it to where like anyone could run it. So that's been kind of my goal with the IT. Grounds, I was taking care of grounds for a long time. Now we have passed that over. I'm still overseeing grounds, and then again, any kind of projects or whatever with grounds, I will be doing that. Any more detailed stuff or whatever, and then worship here and there,
and then worship. So, a lot of different hats for Tim Cook, but definitely appreciated, and definitely very, very important to help making Harvest run so smoothly in a lot of different areas. So whenever you see something that's new and fresh, you can give a lot of thanks to Tim, or when you go into the sanctuary and your internet works, you can also thank Tim. But
if it doesn't, then
good morning, Crystal.
Reach out.
Good morning, Rachel Lee. Great to see you, Rachel. So a lot of good stuff that he does for us. So when you see him, just give him a big thumbs up, fist bump, and tell him thank you for everything that he does. But as I mentioned yesterday, he and Christine did a fantastic, and Suzanne. That whole worship experience was awesome, and then topped with an awesome, great word from Pastor Xavier. So, Tim Cook. We're going to learn about Tim Cook right now. So, where are you from, Tim Cook? Where were you born?
I was born in Elk Grove Village, Illinois, so right outside of Chicago.
Okay.
So my parents
What year
were...
What year were you born?
1983.
Okay. It was a good year. It's a great year. Yeah.
So my parents were kind of in a halfway place. My parents went to, it used to be Columbia Bible College, now CIU. And I guess they met there, ended up getting married. So I guess my dad kind of finished his degree, and then they went to language school in Costa Rica.
Okay.
And that he had been in the military, so they got involved with a ministry called Overseas Christian Servicemen's Centers or something like that. So ministering to any kind of military servicemen overseas. So they ended up in Spain for a while, and that's where one of my sisters was born in Spain. And then I'm sure I probably will like mess up the timeline. Rebecca, my wife's family, they're big on the stories, and they tell the stories over and over and over, so they remember them all.
Yeah.
My family was like, there's the story, there you go. So I think we kind of had to dig after a while and figure out. So I will probably mix some of this up, and they'll be like, no, we were
So
actually
your parents, at the end of the day, they went to what is now known as CIU. Yep. Did immersion training in Costa Rica. Was that to pursue a ministry path?
Yeah, for sure. So that was their goal. They wanted to go into I don't know if the goal was specifically Spain or if it was just like Latin America or whatever. They ended up in Spain, so they wanted to learn Spanish. So that was the biggest thing. Costa Rica, they learned the language, and yes, I mean you obviously get immersed in the culture, and I mean that's a big part of it too. So they were in Spain for a while. My sister was born. They came back. Ended up in Illinois. That's where my grandparents were in Illinois for a while, and so I was born there. When I was 2.5, we moved to Ecuador. And Quito, Ecuador. Yeah.
Okay, nice. I hear they eat guinea pigs there. Is that true?
Yes. Yeah, my dad actually wrote a thing for Reader's Digest, and it ended up in the whatever part they like talk about things around the world or whatever. So he wrote this thing about guinea pigs, and it ended up in there. So that was pretty cool. I have never eaten one.
To your knowledge, they didn't.
I mean, we kind of lived in this bubble there, so it was. I mean, we still ate like pretty American food, and
good morning, Deborah Rue. Good morning, Tessa. How are you doing today? So you lived in a bubble, so you know, to your knowledge, you had
no. I mean, there were a few times we kind of went to some friends' houses, and they were like locals or whatever. Well, I say locals. Like, I'm trying to think. My school had a lot of like business kids and stuff like that. So it was the bulk of the school was missionaries. It was a missionary school. Right. I think there were like 500 kids, K through 12. I mean, not a huge school by the U.S. standards or whatever. But anyway, but yeah, so it was very much a bubble. I mean, you had Spanish class,
right?
And so we all had like a Spanish class every day. But still, like the whole school was English. And anyway, so my the friend I was talking about, so they had been there a long time. His dad, I think, was on a ship most of the time. They ended up stationed in Ecuador, and but they were from like Czechoslovakia or something like that. And they had some kind of crazy seafood something, but that was not Ecuadorian. I mean, it was like their normal thing. So that's like the only thing I can point to. Like, oh, that was weird, but that was not even Ecuador. I mean, Ecuador has amazing food. So you talk about their ceviche. It's shrimp,
like cold and marinated
cocktails,
fermented.
Shrimp cocktail.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a little different than what you would have here. But I mean, they'll slam it full of shrimp, and it's amazing. Yeah. And just eggs and rice and meat and whatever. I mean,
I've seen the food shows.
Standard.
I'm a big food show guy, so I've seen the Ecuador one, which is how I knew about the guinea pigs. But it looks like a cool place to grow up. How long did you live there?
13.5 years.
Okay, so a long time.
Yeah, no, so I was there preschool through ninth grade. I finished out my ninth grade year before we left. So, yeah, so that was most of my. It's funny where you get to the point in your life where you're like, that was like most of my life, and then you're like, that was like half of my life, and you're like, oh my goodness, that was just a little.
Right,
piece
I'm
of
really
my life.
old.
So,
Good morning, Ashley. Good morning, Amy. So, your parents, what kind of mission work were they doing? Did you get involved in that as well in any aspect? Or?
Not really. I mean, my dad, toward the beginning, I remember him going off. They would do these jungle treks, and they would send out a medical team, and he would be with the medical team, and so he would do the teaching, speaking part or whatever. They would minister to people, both spiritually and physically, and so they would have the medical team, and then he would be going along with. And then that kind of morphed a little bit, and he ended up. There was also a big so Quito. The reason it's such a massive like epicenter or whatever is that there's a massive radio station. So as far as I know, it's the biggest one. Like at least back then, it was the biggest one in the world.
Wow!
And so they would actually transmit signals so that there's a Quito's weird. It's at 9,500 feet, so you're way up in the air, but it's in a valley.
Right.
And so we lived on the side of a volcano. Active volcano.
Wow, that's awesome.
But so at the top of that volcano was these massive towers, and they would communicate down to what we called it was a place called Pifo, a little town outside of city, outside of Quito, and they call it the antenna farm. And if you imagine an antenna farm, that's what it looked like.
So like a solar farm, but all antennas.
Antennas.
Okay.
Yep. And so it was crazy. My brother spent some time actually painting the towers. So you're 100, 200, 300, 400 foot towers, and they would go. They'd pay the kids $1 an hour or something like that to go get on these harnesses and and paint the towers. It's amazing. One of the amazing things about Ecuador. Couldn't do that here.
And how many siblings do you have?
There's 4 of us total. So I've got 2 sisters, 1 brother.
Cool. And we should know too that Tim has 17 children. He has. You have 6. You have a recent 6th edition, right? So
yeah, Leah's 4 months old now. So our oldest is 14, Samuel. So we go 14, 12, 10, 8, 5, and then 4 months.
That's impressive. That's impressive. You've probably seen them too. They're incredibly well behaved. They sit on the row. Yeah, all parents are jealous of the way the Cook family or the Cook children act, and they're really great kids as well. So we'll get back to sort of your upbringing, but I want to swing since we're on the vein of your immediate family. Yeah. You and Rebecca have been married how many years?
Going on 18 years
18
this year.
Years,
so
wow.
September will be 18 years.
Where did y'all meet?
So we had actually moved to Texas, and then I ended up coming here. So my sister and brother-in-law were going to seminary at CIU. Well, my brother-in-law was.
Okay.
They'd gotten married. I think at that point they maybe had 2. I think they had 2 kids at that point. So I came. I was just going to come for a summer, and I had actually she had lined up a job for me doing some painting with a guy at their church.
Cool.
And I got on a Greyhound, went like 30-something hours we were in South Texas. So we had moved to Laredo initially.
Right.
And then we were there for 1 year, moved to Edinburgh, Texas, which is kind of McAllen, down at the very bottom of Texas. So I hopped on a Greyhound, went all the way over here, got here, and the guy was like, oh, sorry, I hired 2 other guys, so...
Oh, awesome.
Tough luck.
Yeah.
But then she ended up talking to someone in their neighborhood. Right. They were in the CIU village. It doesn't exist anymore. Little trailer park thing close to CIU. So she ran into someone at the park, and she was like, oh, I know this guy who does landscaping. He's looking for good people. Mm-hmm. And I had done like 1 summer of landscaping with my brother. I knew nothing. But anyway, so I called him, and just on the phone, he was like, sure, you got a job. Come whatever day.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's awesome. So he actually just worked out of his house. I mean, he had a really small company, 2 employees, hence the need to get someone else who was good. And so Rebecca ended up, she was there, like babysitter, caretaker, whatever. So like they were always home. I mean, so this guy, I mean, everyone tries to work their way into the point where they can just sit at home and send their guys out. Well, he had 2 employees, and he would get the work, and he'd sit at home. And I'm sure he did more than that, but in our minds, it was like, how do you have such a sweet deal where like you can have 2 employees, send them out, and like chill out at home. But anyway, so they were there. But they had twins, and I think they had at least 3 kids. Right. And so she would be over there often, just watching their kids. Okay. helping out with
So
stuff.
that she became experienced in dealing with like multiple.
Oh yeah, I mean she was taking care of kids. I mean she would take care of families with 5 kids.
Okay.
I mean, and it would be just her.
All right.
And she was like itty bitty.
So you went over to the boss's house and you were like,
yeah. So I had seen her kind of here and there,
Yeah.
and I think the first time or one of the first times she had seen me, I was wearing one of those big old like yellow rain suits. So
Okay.
I looked like a big banana, out in the yard. She was like, "That's the guy." I'm
yeah,
wearing
yes,
out there."
that's the man in the yellow hat. Yes, yeah.
So, yeah, no, we ended up, Debbie and Brian, my sister and brother-in-law had left for a week or something, so I was just at their house, and my boss went to Christian Life. I don't know if I think it's still just called Christian Life.
CLA.
It was CLA, but now it's Christian
yeah.
Life, or
I think they call it both.
I think,
You're
anyway.
right.
Which is a great church, too. So, so I ended up going there, and that's where Rebecca went, and her family, they went there. And then she invited me to some youth event.
Okay.
Asked me to come and pick her and her brother
So
up.
she asked you. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So,
So it was the yellow suit. There was power.
it was.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, no, I mean that kind of started it. I had never dated anyone in my life. She had never dated anyone in her life. I mean, we both probably had a few things where we kind of were like, maybe this is a possible dating scenario, but I mean that was as close to dating as either of us had ever gotten. So we started dating. I kind of, in my mind, I was like, man, I guess if I don't actually start doing something at some point, this probably will never happen. So I probably should do something. Which I mean, So I talked to her dad. I was like, hey, can we date? The whole deal. And he was like, oh, maybe. Let me get my gun out.
Right.
So her dad is he can come across as very intimidating.
Yes.
But he's a great guy. I love him.
Yeah.
But he's a teddy bear. But he will kill you, so don't cross him. But yeah, so that was that. I guess we dated for about a year. Got engaged. As soon as we got engaged, I left. I actually had been planning on going to Moody Bible Institute already. I had applied.
And that's in Chicago, Moody.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I actually, when I came this summer to come here, I was planning on being here for the summer and then going to college. I mean, that was the plan. And then I ended up not getting accepted the first time. They usually have a waiting list of 1,500 or so. At least back then. I don't know about now, but that was a long time ago. So I didn't get accepted the first time. And I was young too. I was like 17. So I'm sure they were like, "Oh, give them a little time." So I ended up here just doing landscaping for that whole year, and then I left. So we got engaged right before I left to go to college. So I was there for 1 year while we were engaged, and then came back. We got married. I took 6 months off, and then we went back up. And so for her, that was a massive culture shock. She had never been more than I think 2 states away. I mean, so I know they had been to North Carolina, Georgia, maybe just into Florida, something like that. But I mean, definitely south.
Yeah.
So had never been to the north.
And Chicago's a big city too. Good morning, Danny. Good morning, Brenda.
She hated Chicago. So, I mean, just with a passion. So it's a testament to her love and faithfulness to me that she would go and brave Chicago. So for her that was as soon as we start driving into Chicago, just depression would set in, and then it would not lift until we left. So she ended up she worked for Hair Cuttery here, so she had always wanted to cut hair.
Yeah.
So and she always wanted to have a family, and that was really her end goal. But she knew she wanted to cut hair at least for some time. So worked for Hair Cuttery here. She could transfer it up there, which was great. But there was a hair cuttery literally 2 blocks away from us in Chicago. And she was like, nope. She found one out in a suburb. Yeah. And she was like, I'm working there. Because every day I can leave the city and breathe a sigh of relief and then come back in and cry and then leave. Anyway. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, cool. So you guys got married, lived in Chicago, and then came back to Columbia when you were done with Bible school.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then, she, at that point, she got pregnant not long after that. And then, once she was close, she was like, pass the baton, your turn.
Yeah.
So, which she did. I mean, she paid my way through school, basically. I mean, Moody Bible Institute, so for anyone who doesn't know, a lot of people don't know this, it is tuition free. So, for anyone who wants to go into ministry, that's their goal. You literally pay nothing for tuition. You do pay for like room and board, and so they do require you to stay on. But I mean, it was like $600 a month when I was in the dorm. When we were in married student housing, $1,000 a month. Yeah. So that total cost. So, I mean, when I graduated, the only reason I had any debt was because when we first moved up, she couldn't start working right away. We had to transfer. Right. So we did take out some money to make it through that one semester. So literally, I got out of college with like $7,000 in debt. That's awesome. If you're wanting to go to ministry and looking for a college, CIU's great, but you'll pay a lot of money. Cool. So.
And I'll ask this before we go back to some of your ministry or upbringing in terms of what your church life was like. At what point was there like a plan to like have a lot of kids, or you just like we'll kind of just see what happens, or was it like we're gonna have this amazingly huge family?
So Rebecca had always wanted like 7 kids. I mean that was just always her.
Oh, so
her
we
thing.
can expect one more.
So I mean, whatever. At this point,
you're one away. You're like almost there.
I mean, I always figured 4, but that's normal. I'm one of 4, so I was just like, it's the perfect number: 2 girls, 2 boys, whatever. Right. So, but no, I mean, we kind of pretty early on we had just decided, you know what, we're gonna leave that up to God. And just go, you know what, cool. God, whatever you want to bless us with, we will see it as a blessing. I never found the place in Scripture where it says. You know, they're sort of a blessing, maybe. You know, I mean, it's always like, man, you're blessed. You know, they're amazing. Whoever has a lot of them, like, oh my goodness, you're going to take the world over. Right. So I think I had to just shift. You know, when Xavier was talking about focusing on truth, not facts. Right. I think that's a place where it's easy to get caught up because it's just like, oh my goodness, like the fact of I have to take care of this human being and like this is going to cost money and it's going to be really hard and you know whatever. So, but yeah, for us, it's hard. That's just reality. I mean, it's hard. A lot. Yeah. And so, ironically, Leah now is the happiest baby. She's the only one who has just been straight up happy, and so it's great for us. It was like, whew, because the others were very much like attachment parenting kind of people. So we don't try to do schedules. I mean, nothing. We just whatever they need, they get. Right. Period. Up to a certain point, then it's like, okay, now we shift. But once they can like take responsibility for things, then it's all that's over. But yeah, I mean, we let them do what they need. So it just means that if they need a lot, then
you give them
they take a lot.
Right.
So yeah, so I mean they. As far as like colicky babies and projectile vomiting, I mean that was just like the story of our life for most of the others. Right. So it was definitely hard. So it was not an easy thing. And heavily weighted on Rebecca's side. I mean, she takes the brunt of that. I mean, we don't do formula bottles, whatever. Right. So there's really nothing. I mean, when they're up to a certain age, there's nothing I can offer other than changing diapers and holding them.
Right.
So which is fine. it helps. But so Leah has been she's beautiful, a joy. So. Yeah, there's something about like a baby waking up and as soon as they see you, they're just like, like she just has, which her smile is straight. It's so funny because she'll smile so big and it's just perfectly straight. But it's cute as anything.
Yeah, and listen, as a father, I really appreciate you bringing her around because that way my wife gets her baby fixed. Yeah, so it's awesome. No, but she is darling, and again, all the Cook children are fantastic kids. So we were certainly blessed by that entire family, not just Tim, but the entire Cook clan. All right, so let's kind of go back, and this is not going to be a straight line story. We'll circle back. So your parents were missionaries. You grew up till you were a freshman or finished your freshman year of high school, 9th grade in Quito, Ecuador. What was, aside from being a missionary's kid, what was your church experience? What was church life for you?
Yeah, so we went to a church called English Fellowship Church. So again, you're talking about the bubble. It was, everything was in English. It was mostly missionaries who went to the church. And anyway, so obviously there's a lot of missionaries there. Right. To be able to have a full, decent sized church. Right. But yeah, so pretty traditional, evangelical, whatever evangelical, that picture that you get in your mind is probably that. So the organ and the hymns, toward the end when I was leaving, they had started branching out into like more contemporary stuff and get a guitar up there. So they were not at all like anti whatever. It's just that's just what they had. They had a piano, they had an organ, away they went. And anyway, one of my good teacher friends who we still stay in touch to this day, he played organ there. And anyway, so yeah, that was. I mean, there was no hand raising, any of that kind of stuff. All I knew about like the spirit, and I mean, I shouldn't say about the spirit. We probably had a somewhat healthy but lacking view of the spirit.
Right.
So, I mean, all I knew of like charismatics was, in my mind, it was just like, oh, they're all crazy, going to hell. You know? I mean, that's all there is to it. And when I had gone to,
yeah, we'll just let somebody else do that.
Right. When I guess maybe once or twice in the U.S. when we came here, because we'd come back every now and then. I mean, every few years or whatever for furlough, and you'd come raise support and stuff like that, and visit your supporters. And so we had gone to a few churches, and they just reinforced what was already in my brain. I was just like, oh my goodness. I mean, I'm a little kid. You know? What is going on? You know? And then my parents' conversations about it later would be kind of like, oh, that was way crazy. And so that's all I knew. And so it was. So speaking of Christian Life Assembly, CLA, that was the first like charismatic. I don't know if they officially use the title. I would think they officially use that title, but that was the first church that I went to that it was like biblical. Like I mean, there was at one point there was like someone who spoke in tongues. I was like, ooh, you know. So automatically my radar goes up. I'm like, what is that? Oh no, it's those people.
Right. Like me, you're like, there's snakes, or they better not see any snakes.
But so then they would stop, and someone would like interpret it.
Right.
Someone would say what it was, and then we'd move on with life. And so it helped me to see like, and also, I mean, Rebecca and her family, that's what they grew up on the other side of the, like, you know, if you can picture the craziness of charismatism of charismatic churches, that's what they grew up with. So for her, CLA was like majorly toned down. They're just like, whatever, this is, you know. But so for me, it at least opened my mind. So I think if I had not gone to some place like that, I would have probably stayed just totally closed off to any of that stuff, because it just was nuts to me. So, but yeah, so that's where I started kind of opening up to maybe there is something with this. And then we ended up in a way over the top charismatic church where I ended up leading worship for 5 years. So, which was funny. So, yeah, so that's kind of, I guess, the gist of my upbringing.
Yeah.
So
always been interested in music and playing and singing.
Yeah. At some point in school, you know, when they do that, what do you want to be when you grow up? I you know, at one point I put like a police officer. Right. Another point I put a piano player. Yeah. So I always loved music. I remember listening to we had these Salty the Singing Songbook tapes, and I loved the harmonies. They did such a good job with the harmonies and whatever. So for me, harmony was just something I loved, and I'd love to just pick up on it and start singing harmony along with anything. Got my first guitar in like 6th grade. My sister Lori had actually picked up guitar first, and I wanted to play it so bad. So she wanted it to be her thing, because it was one of those, like, you know, those sibling things where it's like, okay, can I do something that you're not involved in? Right. You know, so we were always, you know, very close growing up. And Salty, yes.
Ruth is a fan. Yeah.
I don't know. We actually don't have any of those now, so it's funny. Like you'd think I'd have those for my kids, but anyway.
So she wanted to be her own thing.
But yes, like,
yeah.
So she had gotten like a classical guitar, started taking some lessons, right? And then I had showed a lot of interest, and then in 6th grade, my parents bought me my first like classical guitar. Okay. So I mean, she actually taught me like just a few chords, like taught me one song where like you play an E chord and then you slide up to here and then you slide down and then you slide, and that was like my first song. It was just like play an E, slide your fingers around. Yeah. And man, I loved it. So I can't remember if I don't think I took any lessons there, but On record, yeah.
On record, yeah.
We had records growing up. But ours was mostly like Maranatha Praise, that kind of stuff. So again, to give you a view into what my musical upbringing was, I was the rebel who got I shouldn't say that. My sister was really she was the one who would find all the cool music.
Yeah.
And then I'd be like, oh, this is way better than that other stuff. So,
what is this? We listen to DC Talk. What is
yeah.
This is crazy.
Newsboys.
Yeah.
DC Talk. Jars of Clay. I mean, she would find the stuff before anyone else found it.
About,
That was the thing. So.
Ruth is also a big fan of Shane and Shane. You like Shane and Shane?
Yeah, I love some of their stuff. I have never like followed them as a group, and that's something that I guess is sort of ironic about me. I find it so difficult to find music that I just really love. That really, I'm one of those that I like music that like makes you cry or whatever. Like I want something to like hit me hard inside, and which I guess is also why that's what I write is stuff that isn't generally like lovey feely whatever.
Right.
Anyway, but so she would expose me to all this other stuff that I just like.
Right.
Man, yeah, I love.
She expanded your musical horizons.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. So from there, you're like, you just grew as a musician and kind of fell into your own vein of what you like and what touched you, and you became a worship leader at a super duper charismatic church.
Yeah. So I guess so. My journey was kind of. I guess I had the classical guitar for a long time. I didn't buy my own guitar until I came to the U.S. My first one was an electric guitar. Loved it. It was so fun. I played like with youth groups and stuff starting up. So that's really where I started learning stuff.
Sure.
Was with youth groups, and then in Laredo, Texas, where we moved first when we came to the U.S. My mom ended up having just some health issues, and eventually the doctors were just like, you know what, you just need to get out of the smog, and I mean, because Quito, again, it's this valley, and so all the smog just kind of like hovers there. It's not a super healthy place to live, as far as that goes. I think. I want to say it was like 2 million people back then. I don't know. I think it's way bigger now. But anyway, so we'd come in Laredo. I ended up at we were in a Hispanic church for a while, and they had lost their guitar player because he went to college or something. And so they were like, "Hey, do you want to play?" And then for me, I was like, duh! Like they had a red electric guitar, and I was just like, "Oh my goodness, this is amazing!" And so that was one of those examples where you just get tossed in the deep end because I kind of knew some stuff, but they didn't have any chord charts. They had nothing. I didn't know the songs, nothing. And so the worship team, the people would sing the song, and I would try to figure out the chords. And so everything was in C. And so, but it was fun. So I mean, I kind of built up all this list of chord charts, and I was on a team for I guess that year or whatever. Probably was 6 months by the time we got really into it. Then when we moved to Edinburgh, I ended up in a band called Candlelight.
Nice.
So that was fun.
Sounds like a band that would make you cry.
Yeah. I mean that was not. We just did standard whatever. It was cool. It was not like we were doing any. Yeah. We maybe I think we did. Pablo Paredes was one of the guys. He played bass and then at one point broke his arm, and so he took up the harmonica. He played some drums too. He was not our drummer, but anyway, I don't know where I was going with that, but
you had a band. You were in a band, and then that evolved, and here we are now with you eventually being a huge component to our awesome worship here at Harvest. When was your? Were you always pretty strong in your faith? Were you always pretty strong in your faith with Jesus and kind of understanding what that meant?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've known nothing else, and so it's one of those things where I guess when you grow up with it, at some point you have to realize I have to decide, is this actually mine or what? So I think when that's all you know, it's like the odds are that's where you're going to keep going. So I guess the difference is whether you really pursue it as something that's like, all right, this is really going to be part of my life, or you just go, whatever. Right. I'm a Christian and whatever, on with life.
When did you get saved?
So I was 4 years old, just at our home in Ecuador. I think it was the first home we were at there, and just with my parents.
Wow. Okay.
And yeah, it's funny. My memory is horrific. So at some point we had to do something in school where they were asking about that. What was kind of what changed when you became a Christian and this and that. And I was like, I mean, really nothing. I just became a Christian. And my teacher actually like kind of flipped out on me, and I was like, whoa. She was like, no, when you become a Christian, it's like a total change, and man, you're not. And so and it kind of freaked me out. But then my mom was actually sharing later. She was like, no, man, when you made that decision, like you would like beg us at night to let you just sit there in your bed and like read your Bible.
Wow, that's awesome.
So, that was stuff I just didn't. Again, I was 4 years old, so
right.
I don't remember stuff from 2 years ago, let alone like when I was 4. So that was cool to hear that, not even remembering it.
Yeah.
But just to see, because again, in my mind, I was just like, whatever, this is just my life. But to have her be like, man, no, there was, this massive change, right. Even at the age of 4.
That's really cool. That's awesome.
But and we had like, growing up so I went to a private Christian school there in Ecuador. And so there was always, you'd have like spiritual emphasis week, and where the whole entire week is just like chapel all day, every day kind of thing. And so that was really cool. Probably a lot of my real like encounters or whatever would be those times, and going to VBS, and we'd go to summer camp, and they would take a bus load of kids to the beach and whatever, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So if I think back to like what were the times that really impacted me and helped kind of push me into a deeper level of faith, it's probably those things. It's, youth group times, right. and whatever, when you really could, with a bunch of other kids, really be pressing in. And
yeah.
So yeah, but I don't. For me, that it has always been a big part of my life, and so even as I look back, it's like, sure, I've had questions.
Right.
But to me, it's just when something is your reality, mm-hmm. It's really hard to. Yes, there are some times when you just don't want to. So there were times when I'm just like, I've been like, whatever, I want to fight against it or whatever.
Yeah.
But at my core, I always think about that: train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he won't depart from it. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how I feel. Where like even in those times when you are led astray or whatever, there's in your core, you always know that's what I'm going back to, because right. This is the truth, So and that's, I guess, been one of just the anchors in my life, and something that even for those of you who follow me on Facebook, I can be a little whatever. I'll kind of poke people on all sides of the aisle, but it's like because for me, I want the truth, and I know that's where we all are, no matter where we stand.
Right.
But yeah, it's just been something that always has burned in me, where it's like, man, I literally don't care what it is. I just want the truth. Mm-hmm. And so since I have seen that from a little kid as the truth, that's been a big part. And then I've studied it, ever since. So
that's awesome. Cool. Very good. Who were significant mentors to you on your kind of path to where you are now?
I've often wondered, and again, my horrible memory. So I've thought back often, going, man, like what? Because this topic will come up often, and you're like, who were the influential people? Growing up, I don't know that there was anyone who really was just a constant force. Right. It was more like just different people here and there, and
clearly you were immersed in that world, so you probably had a chance to see how other people operated and kind of follow their example to a degree, I would imagine, as well.
Yeah, and so it was, for me, it was more that I didn't have like some person to latch onto. It was more just me looking and seeing people live their lives. My dad was, for him, like scripture memory was just a massive thing. I always remember. He had this little card holder thing, mm-hmm. and he would have just scripture references written on there. They were his little flashcards.
Right.
And if he was sitting somewhere for a few minutes, he was pulling that out. He was popping out his flashcards, flipping through, and he would just always cycle through, always adding stuff to the list and whatever. So that made a big impact on me. Just always seeing that he was just so hardcore about scripture, having that be a big part. I mentioned the teacher, Greg Collard is his name. He was a Bible teacher at the Alliance Academy, which is where I went in Ecuador. Now he lives in California, but he's the only person I've really stayed in touch with. So weekly, which even actually today later I'm doing a FaceTime with him.
Cool.
But so he's one person that I guess it was funny because we really connected way later. So he was my teacher in ninth grade. So I didn't get much time like getting to know him, but a little bit, and that's his thing. He is a mentor. So so he actively seeks out people to I was going to say to mentee, but to mentor. So anyway, so that it's just different pieces from in different places. But I feel like for me that was like God just surrounded me with a lot of truth and a lot of good stuff. I mean, from the church to the school to all that stuff. I probably had way more than most people would have. So even looking back, I'm like, well, man, maybe I didn't necessarily have a need for it. I mean, part of me is like, man, I wish I had like a mentor.
Right. But you've had a lot.
I was immersed.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, that's really neat. That's awesome. So clearly you just had a lot of great people around you to influence you. And I think that's a good example for every parent out there to realize that even though we're not necessarily living in a missionary world where our kids are always surrounded by that element, it's such a huge thing to be a positive example to your children with how you live your life, and kind of like Tim just remembering his dad being so adamant about Bible verse memorization and things like that. Do you try to mirror those different things in your children to your children as well?
If I'm honest there, I have to say I have probably done like a horrific job of I mean, we I guess in general we keep positive things around them. We try to keep like there's a Bible verse that is up on our little chalkboard that generally Rebecca's the one who's like, all right, well, let's swap it out. The kids picked the one for this month. So it's funny because so many times we look at the people in our lives and we even if I point to our country people, whatever, in any scenario you can point to the bad, you can point to the good,
right?
And so I can point to those really good things that were super just amazing qualities and just great practices, and then there would be other things that would make you just really scratch your head and say like, man, how can you be so into the scripture and prayer and that kind of stuff. I mean, I remember my parents probably daily would at some point they would go in the room, close the door, and I knew they were on their knees, side by side,
right,
praying.
Wow.
And there's been kind of this theme that I've seen a lot, which is sad in many ministry circles where ministry is like the thing, and many times ministry becomes the only thing.
Right.
And so for us in our family, I mean, there wasn't really like a closeness at all. It was just like, they're the parents, here are the kids, they do their thing, we do our thing. Mm-hmm. So I think what we become as parents ends up being either we go to the same extremes that we saw, or we try to pick something, or we react against something.
Right.
And sometimes our actions are more a reaction against something than a like, oh, I really like this, so I want to do this. Mm-hmm. And so I think for me, what I have, whether consciously or subconsciously, I've ended up being like, man, you know what I want my kids to know is to feel my love, to know that I love them. Right. And I guess it was one of the tragedies. Like my dad passed away a little over a decade ago, and I had actually found. So I'm the IT guy. I had like dug up something in his recycle bin that he had like started writing. I mean, we all knew the end was coming. It was sudden. It was like all of a sudden they knew he had this weird immune system thing going on, and they were like, yeah, he's got a few months to live. And so we all were. I mean, it was a shock, but we were kind of prepared for what was going to happen when we knew they didn't have any answer, and he was finally just like, "This is dumb. I'm not going to live like this. I'm not going to live hooked up to the machine forever."
Right.
And so it was like the last week probably we were over there. So I pulled out this document, and he had said something like, all the things that I've done, all the people who would just say, "Wow, thank you for what you did and how you poured into me and whatever." He's like, all that kind of means nothing when I think about the fact that my kids didn't feel my love.
Wow.
And for whatever reason, he I don't know if he assumed, or thought maybe we would go digging through the recycle bin. I mean, I don't know who expects that. Anyway, but for whatever reason, he didn't decide to share. And I mean, it was never spoken. There was nothing, and he just decided, it's the end. I'm done. Whatever, and I'm going home. And so, to me, that was tragic and really just kind of burned in my mind. That, and so the downside. So there's good things and bad things here. The good thing is that I have. And as much as I feel like I even fail at this, I'm like, man, I want my kids to know that I love them. Right. I want them to know that I love them, no matter what's going on, whatever, whether they're doing good, doing bad, whatever. And there's we are very strict when it comes to, look, if we've talked to you about this and you know what's right and wrong and you choose the wrong, there's going to be a hammer somewhere. We don't beat our children with hammers.
Not
just
a real
so you know,
hammer.
It's not literal.
Yeah.
but we lay it down. Right. This is going to be what's going to happen.
Right.
And so when you do it, we already told you this is going to happen, and so it's going to happen. Yeah. And so that doesn't flex. But in the midst of it, I want them to never have a question that says, man, do you love me?
Right.
And anyway. So I think I have and I feel like our generation in general has tended to move really far that direction where we're like, we want to be their friends, we want to love them, and so there is good stuff there, but I need to get stronger in the other stuff and be like, man, I need to really get intentional about making sure that they are pursuing God, because there was this quote, and I don't remember where it was or who, it might have been like a C.S. Lewis thing or something, but it was something about ending up turning our kids into just moral heathens, basically. They're like, they're sort of, they have some good stuff that we kind of put in on, but they're not really following God. They're just like there's no difference between them and non-Christians other than they're good people, basically. And I think that is something that we risk doing if we get too far on the I just want to be your friend, I want to love you. Yeah. And anyway. So that's been, I guess, to dig into the heart of all that.
Right.
That's probably one of the more significant things that has really like burned itself into me as far as just as a dad. Like, what do I in the end want my kids to feel, or what do I want to be their foundation, and I want love to be that. Yeah. But yeah, so I do need to work. What I need to do is not lose the other stuff, and so anyway, so that's been, I think that was a hard thing in my life when I kind of hit that realization of like, wow, like how could this be so good and this really not be good? Right. And I don't want to make this seem like, there wasn't like abuse or trauma for me or whatever. There was just no connection.
Right.
It was, good upbringing. But.
And that's probably a tension, and I agree with you. I think that's a tension that probably a lot of parents feel. I certainly feel it as well, like trying to have the hammer, trying to lead them in the direction that they need to go, but also within that, also making time to spend it with them, have them feel valued. And for me, I have one, so it's like you get my attention, but I think it's awesome when you do your daddy dates and stuff like that. And honestly, like, I have no doubt at all that your kids know that they're loved. I see it. I think anybody that's around you and your family sees it as well. So you're doing a great job there. Yeah, for sure. All right. So you and Rebecca, clearly at Harvest, you've been married 18 years. What led you, as we wrap this up, what led you to Harvest?
So I've been leading worship there's a church called Joy Church. It is no more, but man, I have a lot of friends from those days, and Ralph and Patty Walden, he was the pastor up there, so it was called Threshing Floor, then Joy Church. We got to the point where it was very clear the church was not going to stay open. And so I was like, well, man, I guess we need to look for a church. So I had just reached out to some friends. Matt Cunningham, we were involved in Amway at that point. Okay. And everything that was a massive crossroads in my life, because we had been involved in Amway for about 5 years. and maybe 4 years, because I think we still were involved for a little bit. But so I just reached out to him. I was like, hey, just spreading the word. If any church, needs a worship leader or whatever, I figured I would just start there and just go whatever. And so they were actually going to our Northeast campus back when it was in the Plex. So that was, set up, tear down, every time. Those people were just hardcore.
Right.
The commitment and all that. So, but we were sending, so we'd send a worship leader from Whiteford 1 week, and we'd send a worship leader from 378, then we'd send someone else. So people were traveling to the Northeast every single Sunday to lead worship. They didn't have any consistency. So I went and my first Sunday I was just there. My second Sunday, it was funny because in the other church, it was like every single week we'd show up about 8 o'clock and we wouldn't leave till about 1. This was one service,
right?
But that was just it was long, and we had a bunch of little kids. We had one vehicle, and so it was hard on Rebecca.
Right.
It was really hard. I probably needed a break, but she really needed a break. So when we moved there, she was like, yes, we get a break. So literally the second Sunday we're there, I'm co-leading with, I don't remember if it was Paige or if it was Melody Griffin. I think I did it with both at one point. And then the third Sunday we were there was Easter, and I led. Wow. I think everyone was just so tired of driving. Yeah. They were just like, yes, we're out of here. So I led up there for a while, and it was funny. Pastor Antoine was so great. Every single week he'd be like, so next week? And I'd be like, you're gonna come back? Sure. So anyway, at some point it did become very clear. I was just like, I have got to take a break. And so I had come up here for a worship workshop that PK did at some point. And it really, as he was going through the thing, I was just like, oh my goodness, this is some stuff I've really been missing. I need this in my life. I've got to take a breather. And so we ended up coming up here to 378 and not up, I guess it's down, whatever. So
across.
Yeah. So that's how we ended up here. They didn't need me, which was good. It was healthy for me, and so we got to take a bit of a break, and then we just kind of over time I started just kind of filling in here and there and joining the team, and just little by little kind of morphed in.
And then they're like, hey, anybody have any landscaping experience? And
well, so I had filled out a volunteer thing.
Or
and I was
IT,
I said I would volunteer for IT, landscaping, worship.
Right.
And so, they were like, you know what? We have some serious needs in these areas. Yeah. Could you maybe consider coming and working here? Yeah. So I had been doing landscaping for a long time. And it was good. I was managing a company. I was enjoying it. I had lots of freedom, which was nice. It was one of those hey, as long as everything keeps running smoothly, I don't care what happens.
Right.
just make sure it keeps running smoothly. So that was great. I actually really enjoyed that job. I enjoyed maintenance and just making stuff look pretty and whatever. So
and you've done a phenomenal job. Yeah, I'm jealous. When I see the stuff you put together, it's.
Well, now, I had good stuff to work with here, so it makes it easy when you have a good plan that you can do. And I have ripped out a lot of stuff and whatever, but now Chuck Sedano, I am super thankful for him because he has taken over the actual work of just cutting the grass and pruning the bushes and all that kind of stuff. So that's been great. But it was, coming here was just, that was another, it was a huge boost to me because it was man, I get to do everything I either am really good at or really love. Yeah. And so that was really cool to be able to be man, I get to full time be doing some grounds, doing computers and whatever. Yeah. I had no experience doing, or no, I shouldn't say no experience, no training with computers or whatever. But I loved them. I had spent a lot of my high school and then college and stuff just figuring out computers. Right. And so that was fun. I was definitely very green, but I had to learn a lot about networks and all that kind of stuff. So I've learned a lot being here. So that's been really great.
So how long have you all been affiliated with Harvest or 378, and how long have you been on staff?
So on staff, I want to say this October is 8 years. Okay. It might be 9. Anyway, I think it's about 8 years, and we've been here about 9-ish.
Okay.
Total.
Awesome.
So.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And we will wrap with, by the way, thank you all for tuning in. Hope you've really enjoyed this. I have. I found out that I only knew this much about Tim. So a lot of awesome stuff there. And this is part of my favorite Well, this is my favorite part about this segment is we get a chance to, again, as I said before, pull back the veil and learn a lot more about who someone is and about their life. And in the stories, in the testimony, so to speak, is where we can forge bonds. And that vulnerability is very, very powerful. So hope everyone has been encouraged and excited to learn more and feel like, hey, we know a lot more about Tim Cook now. So that's awesome. And if you would like to share this, we would love to have you hit that share button as well. So I just want to encourage you to help us disseminate this, spread it around. And it's very, very easy for you to do. All you have to do is boop, hit that share button, and boom, like magic, it goes out to maybe people that you didn't even know needed to hear his story. If somebody came up to you and said, "Hey Tim, I know you go to the Harvest. Why should I attend Harvest or be affiliated with Harvest Church?"
So yeah, probably the main thing that has always stood out to me and still stands out, is just, I mean, when I come back to the original statement, creating a place of love and grace for all people. If there is anything that we do really, really well, it's love and grace.
Amen.
So, there's a story after story after story after story of people who were just crushed, whether just in general or many times by the church.
Yeah.
Just crushed. And
Not
so,
this church, the church in general.
No, yeah, the church, and just by whatever church they happen to be at.
Right.
They've been crushed by Harvest. It was amazing.
Right. Like a grape.
Yeah, no, had just had a horrible experience, been really hurt, betrayed, whatever.
Right.
And they come here and find just a refuge, a place where they can come and just, there's no whatever. I mean, it's one of those things that I have a love-hate relationship with the whole big church thing, because it's frustrating to me because it's so hard to get to know like a lot of people, and literally I still run into people and I'm like, "Hey, how's it going?" Like in my mind, I've never seen them.
Right.
"How's it going? I'm Tim. How long have you been here?" "Oh, it's been 6 years." I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
How is this possible? So I hate that. But one nice thing about it is you can sneak in, you can come, you can just get poured into without having to necessarily give. And now I don't think that's a healthy place to stay. So I think everyone needs to get plugged in. They need to be serving. If you don't get to that point, you're just going to get stagnant.
Yeah.
But everyone at some point will get to that point where they're just like, I literally have nothing to give. I am so crushed. I'm so hurt. I just need a place to heal.
Right.
And so that's one thing again. And we'll, as staff, we'll go back and forth about, well, I think we should be more this, we should be more this, whatever. And I'm sure that's not going to change. Churches will always have these things where it's like, let's get perfect. Come on, why can't we be perfect?
Right.
But that always stands out to me. That we are great at love and grace and just accepting everyone and just come as you are and whatever. So I think that's what we do really, really well. And just, I know that even despite disagreements and opinions and whatever, I know that I can trust our leaders. I can trust their heart that ultimately they are seeking God and they want what's best from Him and to be walking rightly with Him and then leading the congregation in the right path. So I think that's something we can always rest confidently in.
For sure. And Harvest is a family, so within families, all families, you have different dynamics, and that's what makes, for me, that's what makes it beautiful. So, including you. Great job, Tim Cook. Tim Cook, there you go. Hopefully you had a chance to learn more about him. And again, thank you so much for tuning in today. I want to remind you, tomorrow morning, Chrissy and Pastor Antoine with some extra encouragement. That'll happen at 9 a.m. On Wednesday, you can listen to Pastor Indar teach you about the Bible. If you have Bible questions, what a fantastic opportunity just to ask. And I promise you, you will get an answer. So that's always a lot of fun. So get those questions ready for Pastor Indar on Wednesday. Wednesday night, I'll add this as well. Wednesday night, we will not just be online. It's first Wednesday, July 1st. So we will be in the house. If you have a desire to come back to church on a Wednesday, come. We would love to have you. It's going to be exciting. We have Alan Platt, Pastor Ken's friend from South Africa. We'll be bringing a special word. It's going to be an opportunity for prayer, an opportunity for consecration. I believe because it is the first, we will also be partaking in communion. Bottom line is it's going to be in the house. It will be open for in-person service. So 7 o'clock. And of course, if you can't make it, if you still don't feel comfortable, listen, our online campus is under construction. And for all of you that tune in via our live stream, you're a huge part of that. You're a huge component in that as well. So we love having you there, and we look forward to having you join us online as well. But make note, first Wednesday in person if you would like. Yes, on communion, awesome, and we cannot wait to see you on Wednesday night, again, online or in person. We'll be following our Phase 1 rules as well. So social distancing, ushers, and your frontline people will be wearing masks. So no worries there. We are taking every necessary safety precaution to make you feel at ease. Thursday morning, you have Coffee Chat with Ruth. Christine did a great job last week on that, but Ruth is back in her seat on Thursday. Nate Barber Barbershop on Friday. Pastor X, again, who brought a fantastic word. Do me a favor, if you have not shared that service from yesterday, I would encourage you to share that as well, because that was a great word, and surely it will touch somebody out there as well. And again, great worship too, for somebody to see. And then, of course, we're right back in the house on Sunday morning. More communion and just another great word, I'm sure, which would be a very powerful service. So there you go. We appreciate you tuning in and participating with us this morning. We love all of you. We are praying for you. And next time you see Tim Cook, just give him a little fist bump. And now you know him. Now you're friends. If you didn't know him before, there you go. There's Tim Cook for you. So next week, Larry Shaw. Next week, we'll learn more about Larry Shaw. So everyone have a blessed day. Thank you so much, and we will talk to you very, very soon.
See y'all.